country paused today to honor the memory of the Holocaust's 6 million victims while reflecting on the tragic parallels with the recent Hamas massacre. This poignant perspective was underscored at the state opening ceremony for Holocaust Remembrance Day at Yad Vashem, where Israeli leaders drew comparisons between the Holocaust and the Hamas attack. For more, ILTV's Mayan Huffman.
At 10 a.m. today, the nation paused to remember the Holocaust, honoring the 6 million Jews who were lost. This year, Israel reflects on Yom HaShoah with a poignant perspective, following the tragic October 7th Hamas massacre that claimed over 1,200 Israeli lives. The haunting echoes of children hiding in fear, acts of sexual violence, and widespread devastation of Jewish communities echo those darker days of history. During the official state opening ceremony for Holocaust Remembrance Day at Yad Vashem, officials drew parallels between the Holocaust and the recent Hamas attack. Israeli leaders, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has referred to Hamas as, quote-unquote, the new Nazis, have frequently compared the two events since October 7th. However, Israeli leaders have stressed that one of the differences today is that there is a state of Israel. Netanyahu said that Hamas's attack against Israel on October 7th was not a Holocaust, not because of an absence of intention to annihilate us, but because of an absence of ability.
מרצחי החמאס מונחים על ידי אותה מטרה בדיוק. הם הורגים תינוקות, ילדים, נשים, גברים, צעירים, מבוגרים. הם חטפו את אחינו ואחיותינו ועדיין מחזיקים חצי מהם במרתפים החשוכים. אנו נחושים להוציא את כולם.
On Monday, the country's leaders once again participated in a joint event, the official wreath-laying ceremony at the foot of the torches lit the night before by dignitaries and representatives of survivor groups and institutions. This was followed by a memorial candlelighting ceremony in the Hall of Remembrance and the youth movement ceremony that included a conversation between Holocaust survivor Miriam Tropper and her granddaughter, Mor Tropper. Yad Vashem's chairman, Danny Dayan, spoke with ILTV before the day solemn events.
In some sense, we are in a race against the calendar. Many Holocaust survivors, tens of thousands of Holocaust survivors have given testimony to us, to other organizations in which we have agreements to share those testimonies. But definitely we have to raise and to gather testimonies to those that haven't. But you know, Maya, that said, I never forget that 6 million Jews were never able to give testimony. They were never able to write their memories or to sit in front of a camera or a laptop and type or record their testimonies because they perished. They perished in the Shoah.
We continue to say the words never again, meaning that there will never be another Holocaust. But when Dayan was asked whether or not Jews could still believe in the concept of never again, this is what he said.
Never again is not, we are not declaring a fact. Actually, is a goal. And we should work hard in order to be sure that doesn't happen. When leaders from the world, dignitaries, come to Yad Vashem and declare never again, I am always haunted by the question, are they sincere? Or is just a shallow cliche, the right thing to say in the right place? And I developed a litmus test, and my litmus test is whether the country or the organization or the university that this person leads has an implementable, unimplemented plan to combat anti-Semitism. If he or she does, then they probably are sincere. If she or he does not have it, then they are most probably hypocritical. And it is important also to say what we mean by anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism, of course, is the persecution of Jews, but by neo-Nazis, but also the calls for the elimination of the State of Israel, whether they come from Tehran, the mullahs in Tehran, or the professors in Columbia University. And all types of anti-Semitism should be confronted, defeated. Those that pick and choose only a specific kind of anti-Semitism to confront, again, they are not sincere when they say never again.
Israel bonds, the heartbeat of solidarity, the powerhouse of support. When the Hamas-Israel war hit, Israel bonds stood tall, proving we're more than just an investment, we're a lifeline. Investing in Israel bonds isn't just a financial move, it's a declaration for resilience, strength, and a better future for Israel. Join us and let solidarity echo through generations.
The first phase of IDF operation in Rafa appears to be underway. The army issued calls to Palestinians to evacuate eastern Rafa neighborhoods ahead of the planned IDF offensive. The move comes as Israel determines that Hamas had rejected the latest efforts to reach a mediated truce for a hostage deal. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz reports.
From this morning, Gazan civilians sheltering in Rafa are being told to move to an expanded humanitarian zone in the Al-Mawasi and Khan Yunis areas. Some Palestinian families are already seen leaving areas east of Rafa after receiving evacuation orders from the Israeli military. An announcement was posted on X along with a graphic showing the route out of Rafa to an expanded humanitarian area that will include field hospitals, tents, and increased amounts of food, water, medication, and additional supplies. The post also stated that posters, text messages, phone calls, and media announcements would be used to encourage the gradual movement of civilians in the specified areas. During a visit to the central Gaza Strip, Defense Minister Gallant said Israel had identified signs that Hamas was not interested in a hostage deal, making way for the Rafa operation.
אנחנו מזהים סימנים מדאיגים שהחמאס למעשה לא מתכוון ללכת לשום מתווה הסכמי איתנו. המשמעות של זה פעולה ברפיח ובכל רצועת עזה בזמן הקרוב ביותר.
Prime Minister Netanyahu said again that the war must continue until the defeat of Hamas.
אבל בעוד שישראל הראתה נכונות זו, החמאס נשאר מבוצר בעמדותיו הקיצוניות, ובראשן הדרישה להוציא את כל כוחותינו מהרצועה, לסיים את המלחמה, להשאיר את החמאס על כנו. מדינת ישראל איננה יכולה לקבל זאת. איננו מוכנים לקבל מצב בו גדודי החמאס יצאו מהמחילות שלהם, ישתלטו על עזה מחדש, ישקמו את התשתיות הצבאיות שלהם, ויחזרו לאיים על אזרחי ישראל ביישובי העוטף, בערי הדרום, בכל חלקי המדינה. במקרה זה, ה-7 באוקטובר הבא זה רק עניין של זמן.
Earlier, 4 soldiers were killed and 10 others hurt in a Hamas rocket attack from South Rafa. Troops stationed on the border near Kerem Shalom were hit by the barrage fired from one of the terror group's last strongholds. More than 10 rockets were fired from Rafa during the attack. The soldiers had been guarding military equipment that was brought to the area for the IDF's planned offensive in Rafa. The deaths brought the toll of slain troops in Israel's ground offensive in Gaza to 266. In response, Israel sealed the crossing, which is a main entry point for humanitarian aid to Palestinian civilians. It's been used to deliver thousands of truckloads of humanitarian aid to Gaza amid the war. According to the army, the rocket attack was carried out from an area close to the Rafah crossing with Egypt, some 350 meters from a civilian shelter. The rocket launching site was neutralized. A Hamas command and control center based out of an UNRWA facility in the central Gaza Strip was also targeted in an airstrike.
Well, as the IDF readies the military for this long-awaited Rafa operation, here in studio, we're joined by ILTV correspondent Rachel Safdie to discuss the hostage talks and what happened. So, Rachel, what happened with these hostage negotiations?
Right, so it seems like at least this round of talks once again has halted. The Israeli delegation is not going back to Egypt anytime soon, and Hamas's negotiators, their delegation, have gone back to Qatar, where there's also Hamas leaders. The mediators, especially the United States, are really trying to get a deal done. But as we heard, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has said it is not in Hamas' interests to get a deal done. They don't see this happening anytime soon. And so we see now plans, the IDF's plans to invade Rafah.
So what are the next steps? I mean, is this operation really beginning?
So earlier today at around 8 a.m. in the Gaza Strip, the IDF dropped leaflets, pamphlets, phone calls, messages for Palestinians that are currently in eastern Rafah. It's not all of Rafah, it's a specific part of it. And we also saw in IDF spokespersons in Arabic, Avichai Adrai, a map of certain areas, informing Palestinians exactly what routes they should take and how they should get to the humanitarian area that they have now expanded. And we heard from some Israeli officials that they are still interested in potential negotiations, even though Hamas isn't. And so we could be seeing a new round of negotiations, even while Palestinians are evacuating. This takes time.
Well, hopefully we can see a positive result and at least the return of some hostages or something in the near future. Thank you, Rachel.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple.
In the north, 2 Israelis were hurt this afternoon in a Hezbollah drone attack near Metula. There have been heavy ongoing exchanges between Israel and Hezbollah along the northern border with Lebanon. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has the latest.
A man was slightly hurt amid heavy damages caused in a barrage of over 60 Hezbollah rockets fired at Kiryat Shmona. The shelling caused damage to homes, vehicles, including an ambulance, and infrastructure. The attack came in 2 waves. In the first attack, some 20 rockets were launched at Kiryat Shmona. Some of the rockets were intercepted by the Iron Dome air defense system. A man aged 65 was lightly wounded by shrapnel. There were no reports of injuries in the second wave of rocket attacks. Hezbollah says the missiles were launched in response to an Israeli attack in South Lebanon. The IDF confirmed that it struck a Hezbollah position in Mais al-Jabal. Following the 60 rockets, the fighter jets struck terror infrastructure in 4 towns in South Lebanon. The IDF also reportedly struck a military compound belonging to Hezbollah in Sefri this morning. 2 rockets were fired from Syria toward Ramat HaMagshimim in the Golan Heights overnight. No injuries were reported. The IDF responded with tank fire toward the site where the rockets were launched. So far, the skirmishes on the border have resulted in 9 civilian deaths on the Israeli side, as well as the deaths of 11 IDF soldiers and reservists. Hezbollah has named 290 members who have been killed by Israel during the ongoing skirmishes, mostly in Lebanon, but some also in Syria.
Al Jazeera has been known for their biased reporting on Israel, but when the Israel-Gaza war broke out, they took things to the next level. In response, the Israeli government voted to shut them down in Israel. ILTV's Devil Klein has the story.
On Sunday, Israeli police seized the broadcasting equipment of Qatari-backed network Al Jazeera in Jerusalem, immediately following the government's vote to suspend their broadcasting. The government vote, which was unanimous, will be in effect for 45 days. The order was approved on the grounds that Al Jazeera has harmed national security. Communications Minister Shlomo Karchi signed 4 additional orders instructing Israeli networks to cease broadcasting Al Jazeera, shut down and confiscate the network's 2 offices in Jerusalem, and block Al Jazeera's website. Al Jazeera has responded to the moves by condemning them, even calling them criminal. The government's decision comes in the aftermath of Al Jazeera's controversial reporting, in which they broadcasted locations of IDF troops, fabricated stories that Israel used AI photos on October 7th, and accused Jews of using the Holocaust, and their correspondent in Gaza, Muhammad Washa, was also revealed to be a member of Hamas. Al Jazeera has a long-standing reputation of biased reporting on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but their reporting on this war has been particularly problematic. This as Qatar is also trying to play the mediator in hostage negotiations between Israel and Hamas. Prime Minister Netanyahu praised the decision, as did Economy Minister Nir Barkat. The order, which required judicial approval by the president of a district court, may be renewed or lifted after 45 days.
In other news, as anti-Israel protests continue worldwide, Israel has issued updated travel warnings and guidelines amid rising tensions over Israel's participation ahead of this year's Eurovision Song Contest held in Sweden. ILTV's Ariella Lachiani has more details.
Israel has issued an updated travel warning for the upcoming Eurovision Song Contest, designating the Swedish city of Malmö as a level 3 threat due to security concerns. The warning, issued by Israel's National Security Council, cites a well-founded fear of potential terrorist targeting of Israelis attending the Eurovision in Malmö. The NSC also highlighted increased calls from global jihadist groups to attack Israeli and Jewish targets worldwide, further raising concerns about the safety of Israeli visitors during Eurovision. Malmö is described as a center of anti-Israel protests, with frequent demonstrations that include calls to harm Jews and Israelis, as well as incidents of burning Israeli flags. Pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel groups are expected to stage large protests in Malmö during the event, adding to the security challenges faced by Israeli participants and visitors. Despite heightened security measures by Swedish authorities, the Israeli visitors attending the event do not receive dedicated security like the official Israeli delegation. In response, the Israeli military's Home Front Command will issue emergency guidelines through a mobile app specifically for Israelis in Malmö during the Eurovision period that will enable real-time communication and provide instructions for behavior in emergency situations. Israeli security officials have also advised caution for travelers attending the event, emphasizing the need to avoid displaying overt signs of Israeli identity to ensure safety.
Well, as today is Holocaust Memorial Day in Israel, we are truly honored to be welcoming two special guests to the studio to tell us more about the importance of Never Again. Lucy Lipiner, an author and Holocaust survivor, and Rina Katz, her daughter, and also the author of Life Inherited, Unraveling the Trauma of a Second-Generation Holocaust Survivor. Lucy Lipiner was born in Poland, where she survived the horrors of the Holocaust at only age 6. She came to the United States at age 16 in 1949, and that 10-year journey to freedom took her through harrowing conditions in Siberia and Tajikistan, losing 17 family members on the way, before finally making it to America, where she built a life for herself, including having a daughter, Rina. Last year, she made Aliyah to Israel at age 90, and she is not stopping. Lately, Lucy has become a bit of a star on social media, fighting back against modern anti-Semitism. Rina, Lucy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I want to start with you, Lucy. I would love to hear from you. What do you think this generation now needs to know about what you survived as a child?
I would like this generation to know exactly what happened to our people. Because how else do you learn if you don't learn from history? This is very, very important, I feel.
Now, when it comes to how you were ultimately able to survive, what did you do? What were you thinking in those moments as a child? I mean, obviously you were very young. Did you grasp what was happening?
I was lucky to be born to the parents that I had, because my father understood what Hitler's fascism meant, that to him it meant a certain death for the Jewish people. So as a child, I just knew that we needed to leave our home, our business, our property, leave our lives and run away, because there was no other choice. Yes, you could hide, but there were always neighbors who would give you away. So my dad felt that the only option left for us is to run away. And that is how we survived. My dad is responsible for saving 15 lives, 15 people's lives. And as a result, we are now about 120 people who owe their lives to my dad.
That's beautiful. Always stories of heroism in the midst of immense tragedy.
Yeah.
When it comes to the anti-Semitism that you experienced around that time as a child, how would you say that it compares to what we're seeing today with this resurgence? I mean, you're very active also on social media.
It's very scary because it feels like 1930s again. But I was a very frightened child. I experienced fear almost daily. But now I am no longer afraid because we are no longer powerless. Now in Israel gives me and everyone, every Jewish person in this world feels more secure. We have a country that is no longer powerless. We are powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even in difficult days, I think we know that this is true.
Yes.
Rena, I wanted to ask you a little bit about second generational trauma. You actually wrote a book on this. What was it like for you? How did it impact your childhood and growing up being a second generation survivor?
I think it was it created the backbone of my whole youth, my adulthood. It was my everything. As soon as I learned, and I learned as a very young child, I remember my mom and I watching the Eichmann trial when I was 6 years old, and I knew exactly what he was on trial for. And I kept his image in my head for years, and then I'd see pictures, and I knew it was totally correct, the way I had envisioned him. And I knew that it was a miracle that I was alive, that I shouldn't have been alive. And I think that there was a foundation for me of guilt and fear. And because of that, I tamped down happiness and pleasure because I was lucky enough to be alive. I'd been born.
Right.
So I really
Colors
couldn't.
the whole worldview. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, we are running out of time, but I did want to ask both of you, in regards to the future, what is your hope for dealing with the anti-Semitism that we face today? I'll start with you, Rena.
I don't feel very optimistic. Anti-Semitism has been around as long as the Jewish people have. And I think whatever the worst thing there is in the world to people is what we ultimately get accused of. So again, I agree with my mom that we have Israel. And unfortunately, people don't want to see us as a moral people and a moral army. But what can we do? We should stop needing to be liked.
Yep. Lucy?
My own feelings about anti-Semitism, it's a virus. And can we cure it? I don't know. We have to, I think educating people would be one way, one option of trying to reduce this awful anti-Semitism.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Rena.
For having us.
Thank you for having us.
Let's take a look at the weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of around 14 degrees Celsius or 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, mostly clear skies and rising temperatures are set to reach highs of around 24 degrees Celsius or 72 degrees Fahrenheit. That's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channel, subscribe to the ILTV newsletter, and don't forget to check out our website, iltv.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.